So now we have talked about CPF as an accumulation tool. We can now go into how we can use CPF as a withdrawal tool. Okay, so in order to understand CPF as a withdrawal tool, it's important for us to first understand CPF Life. Okay. So in order to understand CPF Life, I will have to bring us back to a time where CPF Life was still not a thing yet. So in the past, it was actually the minimum sum scheme, okay, so which was subsequently renamed to the retirement sum scheme in year 2016. Okay, so let me illustrate how this minimum sum scheme works. Okay, so this is a timeline of a person. Okay, so he's now here as he continued to work for an income until about 55 years old. Okay, so he'll be contributing into his CPF into these three different accounts as we have discussed earlier. Okay, let's just assume that this person, he contribute into his CPF accounts, okay, until 55 years old. Okay, let's assume that his CPF account is now about 210,000. So this is just his ordinary account and special account. Okay, so we can exclude MediSave account because earlier I've shared that money in your MediSave anyway you can't take out, right? So this 210,000 is assuming just his ordinary account balance and special account balance at 55 years old. Okay, so at 55 years old, we know that CPF will want to form this retirement sum or minimum sum. Okay, so using this year number, the minimum sum would have been $205,800. Okay, the rule is that you will be able to withdraw any amount above the minimum sum. So in this case, this person has 210,000, minimum sum is 205,000. Okay, so at 55 years old, okay, so after the RA has been created, that 205,000 goes into retirement account. So he will only be able to draw out a grand balance of $4,200. Okay, so of course some people will be unhappy, right? So you have worked so hard during your working years, you have accumulated that 210,000 just when you can smell that 210,000, you can only withdraw out $4,200. Okay, so CPF board understand the unhappiness behind this. So they do offer a way out of this. So what is that way out? Okay, let me erase all these drawings first. Okay, so what happens at 55? Okay, so we can actually, okay, so the way out is actually for us to pledge our property. So if we have our own property, we can actually use our property to do a charge up to a 50% of this minimum sum amount. Okay, so what that means is that our minimum sum now becomes $102,000 only. Okay, so at 55, retirement account is created. Okay, this 102,000 is now going into this retirement account, leaving behind a total amount of $107,000 that can be withdrawn at any point of time. Okay, so this 107,000 is much higher compared to that $4,000 earlier. Okay, so for this amount inside your retirement account, there are three things you can do about it. Okay, the first is you can just leave the money inside retirement account. Okay, so number two, you can also use the money inside your retirement account to purchase a fixed deposit. So even in today's time, you realize that the rates that fixed deposits are giving is actually not as high as the 4% guaranteed interest that retirement account is giving us. So most people, they probably don't use the money to buy fixed deposit. Okay, so the third function of what you can use the money inside your retirement account for is that you can use the money inside to purchase an annuity. Okay, so but really the annuity plans in Singapore, most of them, they actually do not give as high of a returns as CPF Life, right? So most people don't end up buying annuity, they will just leave the money in retirement account as default. Okay, so this retirement account, the money inside will grow, okay? As you continue to contribute, it continue to grow. Okay, so it will grow up to a bigger amount at 62 years old because this is your RA balance at 55 along together with that interest that you have gained otherwise. Okay, and this amount inside here, okay, it will start to pay out at 62 years old. Okay, so again, just a quick reminder, this is the minimum sum scheme. Okay, so at 62 years old, this retirement account balance and interest will start be paid out as a monthly income, assuming about $900. Okay, so this is just an estimated amount. This is not from CPF website, but we just use this amount as illustration purpose. Okay, so in this case, this plan will pay out $900 a month, pay per month, until a point of time whereby your retirement account actually is depleted. No more money left in the retirement account. So it's estimated that the balance will run out at about 82 years old. So you have a time period of receiving about 20 years of payout under the minimum sum scheme. So the problem is that increasingly we are living longer and longer. The average life expectancy in Singapore is now at 85 years old. So we see that there is this gap over here, right? This gap. So the minimum sum scheme only pays until 82 years old, but we are living until 85 years old. So because of this gap, it presents a problem or an issue, and which is why CPF Life was actually introduced. Okay, so CPF Life was after CPF Life was introduced, there were some changes made to this. Okay, you realize that CPF Life is really built on this minimum sum scheme structure. So I'm going to show you how the changes of CPF Life looks like based on this timeline that you are seeing in front of you right now. Okay. So what are the couple of changes that were made? Okay, so number one was that for CPF Life, the payout will now start from 65 years old onwards. So DDA is basically just drawdown age. So from 65 years old onwards, that's when CPF Life starts paying out. Okay, so at 65 years old, what is different or what has happened is also that the retirement account is now split into two accounts. Number one is basically still remain as the retirement account. Okay, so number two is that part of the money is actually used to put into this annuity premium that is then used to buy this lifelong income fund, okay, which, as the name suggests, this lifelong income fund is designed to give you an income for life. Okay, so this is CPF Life. Okay, so the dark blue color diagrams are basically the changes of CPF Life. So you'll realize that CPF Life is really the minimum sum scheme with some tweaks to it. Okay, so now that we have a better understanding, okay, so we can now go into CPF Life. And we know that CPF Life, there are three plans we can choose from at 65 years old. There is the basic plan, there is a standard plan, and there is also the escalating plan. Okay, so the escalating plan is really just an extension of the standard plan. So I'll be spending more time to share a bit more on basic plan and standard plan. So let's start off with basic plan. Okay, so this diagram looks very familiar, same timeline, okay? 65 years old starts paying out. So assuming the same numbers, okay, so this person has 200K in his CPF, okay, and he wants to pledge his property, so he's just putting 102K into his retirement account at 55 years old. Sorry, this happens at 55 years old. Okay, so what happens at 65 years old is that there will be a split of this retirement account and annuity premium. So this 100,000 thereabout, okay, will be split into 80 to 90% remain in retirement account, okay, remain in retirement account, and 10 to 20% of the amount will actually go to this annuity premium that is used to purchase this lifelong income fund. So from 65 years old onwards, what happened is that the retirement account, okay, will start giving that monthly income first. Okay, so it's estimated based on CPF Life, okay, you'll be able to pay out about $730 a month. Okay, so you pay again until retirement account balance runs dry. So it's estimated that the retirement account balance will be depleted at 90 years old. All right. So then what happens at 90 years old? Okay, so if you recall earlier, we have actually set aside at 65 years old, this 10 to 20% of our retirement account balance into this lifelong income fund. So this AP will start to give us or continue to give us that monthly income from 90 years old onwards, all the way for life until death happens. And the payout will be about the same amount. All right, so this is on the basic plan. Now let's go into the standard plan. Okay, so standard plan, okay, so everything, okay, assumptions, we are using the same. So what has changed is over here. At 65 years old, the split is not 90-10. It instead, 100% of your retirement account plus interest, 100%, okay? 100% will actually be going into this AP to buy into this lifelong income fund. So what that means is that from 65 years old onwards, okay, so the AP will start giving us that income for life. So the estimated payout will be slightly more, $800 a month, okay, and it will pay out all the way until death occurs. Okay, so both of these plans sounds good. So then you might ask the question of, hey, then what happened to my CPF money if death were to occur? So let's take a look at that. So what happens upon death if, let's say, you have chosen the basic plan? Okay. So we are seeing the same diagram over here. So quick refresher, at 65 years old, 80-90% of the money inside your RA will remain at RA, and 10-20% of money will go to AP. Okay. So the estimated payout is $730, okay? All right, so what if death were to happen here between 55 to 65 years old, basically before the payout begins? So upon death here, the bequest that will go to our beneficiaries will actually be the retirement account plus whatever interest that has been accumulated. Okay, so that's scenario number one. So scenario number two, what if death happens after CPF Life has paid out already? Okay, so after 65 years old, if CPF Life has paid out, then what will be the amount that our loved ones will be getting? So the payout will actually be the balanced retirement account. At 65 years old, the retirement account start paying out their monthly benefit, right? Monthly income, right? So what we paid out upon death is the balanced retirement account that has not been paid out, plus whatever accumulated interest. And at 65 years old, you have put in money into the AP. So that AP will also be paid out in the event of death. So then what happens if death were to occur after 90 years old, whereby retirement account has been depleted, but AP has kicked in already? So after 90 years old, okay, upon death, whatever will be paid out is basically the balance AP. Okay, so quick refresher. Okay, so before 65 years old, what we paid out is RA plus interest. Death after 65, between 65 to 90 will be balance RA plus interest and AP, and death happens after 90 will be the balance AP. Okay, so this is a hint. So you can probably realize that in the event of death, you are actually getting more under the basic plan. Okay, so now let's go into the standard plan. Is actually going into AP, right? Okay, so what if death were to happen between 55 to 65 over here? So what will be paid out upon death will again be the same as the basic plan. Okay, so it will just be the RA account balance plus the accumulated interest. Okay, so because the split of RA and AP has not happened at 65 years old. So, but if death were to happen after 65 years old, okay, so what will be paid out will only be the balance AP. Okay, so if you compare this to the basic plan, upon death, you're still getting the interest of the retirement account. Whereas under the standard plan, what you're getting is only the balance AP. Then what happened to the interest? So the interest is actually lifelong income fund to continue to give other members that lifelong income for life. Okay, so let me illustrate this by using an example. So assuming me and all of you that are tuning in are 55 years old, okay? So in 30 years' time, I call for a gathering. So by then, we would have all been 85 years old, right? Okay, so when I call for the gathering, 50% of us will be able to attend the gathering, and the remaining 50% of us probably will have passed on already, okay? So the interest of the CPF accounts, or the AP, or the members that have passed away, CPF board has calculated that this amount is sufficient to provide for the members that have lived on until the last one of us dropped dead. So this is how or why the interest for the AP actually remains in the lifelong income fund. All right. So later we'll go through the numbers in greater details. So now let's quickly go to the third plan, which is the escalating plan. Okay, so as shared earlier, escalating plan is really an extension of the standard plan. So if let's say you have chosen a standard plan, okay, you have received a level payout of about $800 a month from 65 years old onwards for life. Okay, so if let's say you have chosen the escalating plan instead, okay, you will be receiving a lesser amount, about $640 or 20% lesser compared to the standard plan. Okay, but the $640 a month will increase by about 2%. Okay, it will increase 2% every year until there will be a point of time whereby the payout will be the same as the standard plan, and eventually be more than the standard plan. So at what age does this $640 per month for escalating plan become the same as the $800 from the standard plan? So it will be at about 78 years old. Okay, so for this $640, for it to grow 2% every year, you need to wait until 78 years old for the payout amount to be the same as standard plan. Okay, So, but before 78 years old, there has been all this underpayment, whereby you have been receiving lesser than someone that was on standard plan. Okay, so even after 78, you are getting more than someone on standard plan. So how long does it take for this overpayment after 78 years old to be the same, okay, as this underpayment before 78 years old? Okay, it's actually that you need to live till age 90 for this overpayment to be the same as the underpayment. So it's actually pretty long. So from this, you can understand why we are not great fans of this escalating plan. Okay, so if this is something that you find helpful for you, something you want to consider, why not just choose the standard plan? Okay, then underpay yourself $640 a month, and then save up this amount yourself, and then overpay yourself after 78 years old. And then at the same time, you have the liquidity of this money that has been paid out. Okay, so the only reason why people might want to go for an escalating plan would be that they want to have this escalation feature automatically done by CPF board. Okay, so this is on escalating plan. So what does it mean to us when we think of CPF as a withdrawal tool? Okay, so CPF Life, it mitigates against 3 of the risks that I shared at the beginning of my webinar. So number 1, it mitigates against longevity risk. No matter how old we live until, CPF Life will continue to give us that monthly income for life. So number 2, CPF Life mitigates against investment risk. Because no matter the market goes up or goes down, CPF Life will still give us that income regardless. And the third risk that CPF Life mitigates against is overspending risk. Okay, so because whether at the start of a retirement or at the end of the retirement, you are still receiving the same amount from CPF Life. CPF Life is probably the best annuity plan in Singapore. So if you compare to the annuity plans that are rolled out by the insurance company, they are not able to beat what CPF Life is actually giving. So it is therefore wise for us to integrate CPF Life with other instruments in our retirement portfolio to give us that reliable income stream to meet our essential expenses. Okay, so but CPF Life alone can only give us a very basic retirement expenses, so we might need to consider using other instruments to help us achieve that desired retirement lifestyle. Okay, so CPF Life, in summary again, there are 3 plans. Okay, the standard plan, whereby you have a higher payout per month, but a lower bequest for your beneficiaries. Okay, the basic plan, it gives you a lower payout, but a higher bequest. Okay, and as mentioned again, escalating plan is just an extension of the standard plan. So the payout is 20% lower than the standard plan, and the bequest is lower, same as the standard plan. Okay, let me just summarize on how we can use CPF as an accumulation and withdrawal tool. Okay, so if you are still accumulating towards your retirement, always begin with an end in mind. Know what you are saving towards to, so that when you have the end in mind, you know you need a good return to help you to get to where you want to go. So CPF can be a good instrument for you to reach there. But of course, there are limitations, as we have shared earlier. There are policy risks, there's a limits to how much you can cap, and there's a taking away of your liquidity when you put money in CPF. Okay, so if you are still accumulating, your accumulation plan must end up with a spending plan that can mitigate the 5 risks that I have shared at the beginning of my webinar. And CPF Life can mitigate against 3 of these risks. Okay? So, but the thing about CPF Life is that it may not be enough, it may only be enough to cover your essential expenses. Okay, so if you are a near retiree or you are already in retirement, okay, we do encourage you to work with your advisor on how you can better use CPF Life to supplement your spending plan during your retirement.